The stars above Valari Prime shimmered like soft lanterns in the sky. The planet was beautiful, its skies painted with purple hues during the day and silver trails at night. For many humans, Valari Prime was just another diplomatic post. But, for Liam, it was something more. It was the place where he met her, Princess Orlin. Liam had arrived 6 months ago as part of a human delegation to discuss trade and peace. Earth's government had sent him because he was calm, respectful, and curious. He didn't speak much, but he listened well, and he never laughed at alien traditions. That made the Valari Council trust him. But none of that compared to the moment he met her. Orlin wasn't like the others. She didn't sit stiff in her throne or speak with heavy words. She was graceful, yes, but always had a spark in her. Violet eyes. Her skin had a faint shimmer under the twin suns, and her hair flowed like silk. But what stood out most was her laughter. It was light and honest, like wind chimes in the breeze. She first spoke to Liam during a shared meal with the diplomats. He was quiet, eating slowly, trying not to look out of place. She had leaned closer and whispered, "You're not like the others. You don't wear fear in your eyes." That was the beginning. From that day, they met more often. First by accident, then by choice. Orlin showed him the crystal gardens, the singing birds of Yarrow Lake, and the old temple ruins where ancient stars were once worshipped. In return, Liam told her about Earth, about rain, snow, streetlights, and old human books. She found human culture strange, but she smiled when he spoke. She liked that he didn't try to impress her. He never acted like a hero. He just spoke, softly, and walked beside her. As days passed, their bond grew, and people noticed. Some whispered that it was a bad match. Some said it would ruin the peace talks. Valari customs did not allow their princess to fall in love with an outsider, and Earth's own rules warned against personal relations during assignments. But feelings don't follow rules. Liam tried to control his emotions, but every time she laughed or looked into his eyes, his heart beat faster. He started dreaming about her, thinking about her even during meetings. And one night, after returning from the Skywalk Bridge where they watched comets pass, Liam knew he couldn't keep it inside any longer. He had to tell her. But how? Valari didn't wear rings. They didn't even believe in kneeling for love. Yet, Liam felt it had to be something personal, something true to who he was. So he made a small charm from earthstone, shaped it with care, and waited for the Festival of Lights, a day of joy and celebration on Valari Prime. That night, Orlin would wear her ceremonial robe and stand in the gardens among dancing lights and flower lanterns. Everyone would be there. It was risky, but Liam didn't want to hide anymore. He stepped into the garden, heart pounding. Orlin stood near the center fountain, her long robe shimmering with silver threads. Her hair was tied up with starlight pins. She turned and saw him and smiled. A kind, warm smile that told him she was happy he came. He walked to her slowly. The music around them faded in his ears. His hands were shaking. The charm was in his pocket, and then, before anyone could stop him, Liam knelt down. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Valari nobles stopped talking. Even Earth's diplomats looked frozen. Liam took a breath, reached into his pocket, and held out the charm. "Orlin," he said, his voice firm but soft. "I know we come from different worlds, but I feel something with you that I've never felt before. If there's any place for love between a human and a Valari, I want to try." There was silence. Orlin blinked once, then twice, and suddenly, she giggled. Not a nervous laugh, not a soft chuckle. A full, uncontrolled giggle that made her cover her mouth. Her shoulders shook with laughter. Her eyes sparkled with joy. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't mocking. It was real, happy laughter. But Liam was confused. The nobles looked horrified. Even, the bird stopped singing. Orlin finally caught her breath and leaned down toward him. Her voice was still soft from laughing. "You really don't know what kneeling means here, do you?" Liam blinked. "What?" She smiled wider. When someone kneels in public on Valari, they're not proposing love, they're surrendering. Liam's mouth opened in shock. What? Orlin took his hand gently, still giggling a little. You just told my entire planet that you surrendered to me, like I'm your queen in battle. Liam's face turned bright red. She leaned closer and whispered, "But I like your kind of surrender." Then she stood up straight, turned to the crowd, and waved her hand. "Carry on," she called with a playful tone. "Nothing to see here." The music slowly returned. The lights danced again. People whispered, but no one said anything directly. Liam stood slowly, heart still racing, unsure if he had just made the best or worst mistake of his life. Orlin stepped beside him, still holding his hand. "Come," she said. "We have a lot to talk about." And just like that, she led him, away from the crowd, laughing under the stars, the charm still clutched in her hand. Liam followed her, unsure of what came next. But one thing was clear. She didn't say no. The next morning, the entire palace was whispering. Servants spoke softly in corners. Guards exchanged looks. Even some council members didn't hide their surprised expressions. News of what Liam had done had spread fast. A human knelt before the Valari princess. A human proposed, in public, on a sacred day. It was something no one had ever seen. Liam walked through the palace halls with quiet footsteps. He knew what people were thinking. Some looked at him with curiosity, others looked upset, even insulted. But a few had a strange look, one of wonder. He didn't regret what he had done, but he wasn't sure what would happen now. When he reached the main chamber, Orlin was already waiting for him. She sat on a high seat dressed in soft blue and silver. She didn't look upset. In fact, she looked calm, too calm. Her eyes followed him as he entered. The room was quiet. Only 2 royal guards stood by the doors. He stopped in front of her, unsure whether to speak. "I asked for a private morning," she said to the guards. "Leave us." The guards looked surprised but obeyed. Once the doors closed, Orlin stood and walked toward Liam. "Well," she said with a playful smile, "you certainly know how to make a festival unforgettable." Liam gave a nervous laugh. "I didn't mean to shock everyone." "Oh, you did more than that. Some of the nobles thought you were declaring war by kneeling. I was trying to declare love, not war." She giggled again, the same soft, musical sound as the night before. "I know," she said, "and I understand now. But Valari is a world of meaning. Every move, every word. People take it seriously. You showed your heart, but you also broke tradition." Liam frowned. "I didn't want to cause problems." "I know. That's why it touched me." They walked toward a large window overlooking the gardens. The morning sun cast soft golden light over the trees and flowers. The charm Liam had tied to the crystal tree still hung there, glimmering in the wind. "I've been thinking all night," Orlin said, "about you, about us, about what might happen if we don't stop this." "Stop?" She turned to him. "No, I don't want to stop. I want to understand what this could become." He looked into her eyes. "Then let's understand it together." She smiled again. "You'll need to understand more than just me. You'll need to learn our customs, our trials, our way of life. If you want to be with me, you'll have to prove it. Not just to me, but to my people." Liam nodded slowly. "Then tell me what I have to do." Orlin hesitated for a moment, then said, "The trial of stars." Liam raised an eyebrow. "That sounds difficult." "It is," she replied softly. "It's an old custom, rarely used now. But when someone from outside Valari wanted to join a noble house, they were tested. The trial is symbolic, but also real. It shows the strength of your heart, not just your body." He didn't flinch. "Where do I start?" She looked at him with a proud expression. "You really mean it, don't you?" "With all my heart." She nodded. Then tomorrow I'll bring you before the High Circle. You will announce your request. They will decide what kind of trial you must complete. Liam looked down at the gardens again. The charm on the tree swayed gently. It reminded him why he was doing all this. For her. That evening, Liam prepared himself. He didn't wear anything fancy, just a simple robe given to him by the palace staff. He stood in front of the mirror for a long time, looking at himself. Human. Plain, soft-skinned, no bright colors or glowing patterns like the Valari. Just human. But his heart was full. And he had something powerful. Choice. He chose Orlin. And that choice meant everything. The next day, the High Circle gathered in the Hall of Echoes. It was an ancient room made of stone and crystal. Every step echoed through the chamber. 12 council members sat in a circle dressed in long robes. Orlin stood beside her father, the king. Her face was calm, but her eyes stayed fixed on Liam. Liam stood alone in the center. Liam of Earth, spoke the head counselor, a tall woman with silver eyes. You come before us with a request. Speak it. He took a deep breath. I wish to bond with Princess Orlin, he said clearly. I come with respect, not as a conqueror, not as a guest, but as someone who loves her. There was a long silence. Then the counselor asked, You understand the meaning of such a bond on Valari? I do now. Then you must complete the trial of stars. The form of your trial will be chosen by the council and the stars. Liam nodded. I accept. Murmurs rose among the council. Some were surprised, some were angry, but none objected. The head counselor stood. Then the trial will be announced at dawn. You will travel into the shattered expanse and return with the moon blossom. If your heart is true, the path will open. Liam had never heard of the shattered expanse before, but the way everyone reacted told him it wasn't a simple trip. He bowed slightly. I will not fail, the counselor nodded. We shall see. Orlin rushed to him as the council exited. Her face was a mix of pride and worry. You don't even know where the shattered expanse is, she whispered. I'm guessing it's not a nice place for a picnic. She rolled her eyes, laughing. It's a dangerous place, gravity fields, ancient ruins. The moon blossom only blooms under starlight, deep inside the expanse. Then I'll follow the stars. She looked at him, her voice suddenly serious. Liam, this trial, it's not just hard. It's dangerous. I'm not afraid. You should be. He gently held her hand. I'd face the stars themselves for you. Her fingers tightened around his. She looked away, fighting the emotion building in her eyes. I'll wait, she said softly. And I'll believe. That night, Liam stood on the edge of the platform where his small transport was waiting. Orlin was beside him, her robe fluttering in the wind. You don't have to do this, she said one last time. Yes, he said, stepping into the craft. I do. As the transport lifted into the night sky, Orlin placed her hand over her heart. The stars above Valari Prime watched silently, and the charm on the crystal tree still swayed. Liam had never felt more alone than he did inside the transport shuttle flying over the wild lands of Valari Prime. Outside the window, the peaceful green valleys had disappeared. Now there were sharp mountain peaks, twisting rivers of silver, light and broken ground that looked like pieces of shattered glass. This was the shattered expanse. He had heard stories on the way, how the ground here sometimes moved, how gravity shifted without warning, and how travelers vanished without a trace. But the moon blossom, the rare flower he was sent to find, only bloomed here, only under pure starlight, only once every cycle, and if he failed to bring it back, the council would not allow his bond with Orlin. The shuttle landed near a glowing ridge. As Liam stepped outside, a strange feeling passed through him. The air was heavy, yet still. The light seemed to bend oddly. Even his own footsteps felt different. He checked the tracker Orlin gave him. It was shaped like a small stone, pendant glowing faintly. It pointed toward the northwest edge of the expanse where the stars were clearest. He took a deep breath and walked forward. Hours passed. Liam moved slowly, avoiding cracks in the ground and floating rocks that hummed when touched. The landscape was silent except for the wind. There were no birds, no voices, just the distant hum of ancient power beneath his boots. He stopped by a wide canyon, where crystal shards jutted from the earth like teeth. The tracker pulsed faster. That meant the moon blossom was near. But as he stepped closer, the ground beneath him trembled. Suddenly the canyon shifted. A huge piece of land rose and turned sideways, like a moving puzzle. Liam fell, sliding across smooth rock and grabbing onto a jagged edge. His fingers burned. He held on tight, heart racing. This was what the stories meant. The gravity here was not natural. It twisted space itself. He gritted his teeth, climbed, up with slow effort and stood again. His knees were scraped, his breath short, but he didn't stop, because every step forward was one step closer to her. Night arrived quickly in the expanse. The sky above was clear, more stars than Liam had ever seen on Earth. The tracker led him to a quiet hill where the wind had stopped completely. There, in the center of a small circle of stones, the moon blossom bloomed. It was more beautiful than any flower he had seen. Its petals glowed with soft white light, and its center shimmered with a deep blue. It floated just above the ground, untouched. Liam stepped closer and reached out gently, but before he could touch it, a voice echoed behind him. "You should not be here, human." Liam turned quickly. A tall figure stood at the edge of the hill. It was a Valari, taller than most, with silver markings on his arms and long dark robes. His eyes glowed softly, not with anger, but with warning. "I'm here for the trial," Liam said, standing straight. "I seek the moon blossom." The stranger stepped forward slowly. "Do you even know what this flower means?" "I know it's the proof the council wants. I know it blooms only for those with true intentions." "And do you believe your heart is true?" Liam nodded. "Yes." The figure paused, then raised his hand. Suddenly the flower rose higher, glowing brighter. The light surrounded Liam completely. He couldn't see anything except white and blue. Then, like a dream, he heard voices. Orlin's laughter, her words, her doubts, his own memories, his fear, his courage, and the first moment he saw her. When the light faded, Liam was back on the hill. The flower now rested in his hand. The stranger was gone. He looked down at the moon blossom. Its light didn't burn. It was warm like Orlin's hand. The tracker pulsed once, then stopped. He had completed the trial, but a new question now formed in his mind. Who was that figure? And why did he test him with no council present? Still, he had no time to think too long. The expanse was still dangerous, and he had to return safely. The return journey was harder. The land shifted more than before, as if rejecting his presence now that the flower had been taken. He slipped twice, once cutting his leg. He used a cloth to stop the bleeding and limped forward, refusing to stop. Hours later, just as the sky turned orange with the coming sun, the edge of the expanse appeared. And waiting there was Orlin. She ran to him the moment she saw his figure. "Liam," she shouted. He nearly fell as she grabbed him, holding him tight. Her hands touched his face, his arms checking for wounds. "You're hurt. You're bleeding." "I've been worse," he said, smiling weakly. "You fool," she whispered. "You didn't have to go alone." "Yes, I did," he said, holding out the moon blossom. "This was my promise." She looked at the flower, eyes wide. "It bloomed for you?" "It did." She held the flower gently, tears rising in her eyes. "Then the stars have spoken." He nodded, placing his hand over hers. "Now we show the council." Later that day, the high circle gathered again. The hall was silent as Liam entered with Orlin. He walked with a limp, but he walked tall. He placed the moon blossom in a crystal bowl at the center of the room. The counselor who had given him the trial stood slowly. "The flower bloomed in your hand. This means your heart was not false." Other members nodded slowly, some in surprise, some with respect. Then, by the law of Valari, the counselor said, "You may ask for the royal bond." Liam looked at Orlin, but before he could speak, she stepped forward and surprised everyone. She knelt. Gasps echoed in the room. Orlin, Princess of Valari, had knelt. "I do not ask for a bond out of duty," she said clearly. "I choose Liam, of Earth. And if he accepts, we kneel together as equals." Liam's eyes widened. He knelt beside her, and together, under the watch of council and stars, they chose each other. After the kneeling ceremony, the hall was filled with quiet tension. No one spoke for a long time. A princess had broken tradition. A human had passed the trial of stars. Two very different worlds had just taken a bold step closer. Some members of the Valari Council stood frozen. Others whispered among themselves. Liam and Orlin still knelt beside each other, their hands lightly touching. In that moment, neither of them cared about the watchers. They had made their decision. Then the head counselor raised her hand. "Stand, both of you." They stood. "You have done what no one expected," she said calmly. "You completed the ancient trial, and Princess Orlin has broken a royal custom that has lasted over 1,000 years. The room waited. "We will not stop you," the counselor finally added. "But your bond will not be easy. Many on Valari will question this, and Earth's leaders, they may not approve." Liam nodded. "I understand. We ask for 3 days. During this time, the two of you must decide where your future lies, on Earth, on Valari, or somewhere else entirely." Orlin's father, the king, finally spoke. His voice was deep and firm. "This is more than love. It is a new path. Are you ready to walk it together?" They looked at each other. "Yes," they said in one voice. The next day, Liam sat alone on the palace balcony, watching the twin moons rise over the gardens. His leg was still healing, wrapped tightly under soft cloth. He held a warm drink in his hands and let the wind move through his hair. He should have been happy. He had the flower. He had Orlin. He had passed the trial. But now came the hardest part, the choice. If he stayed on Valari, Earth might see it as betrayal. He could lose his title, his home, and never see his family again. If he returned to Earth and ended the bond, he would break both of their hearts. And if they tried to live somewhere neutral, would either of them truly belong? Footsteps approached. Behind him, it was Orlin. She wore a simple robe this time, not a royal dress. Her hair was down, blowing in the breeze. She sat beside him without a word. For a while, they just sat in silence. Then Liam finally spoke. "I've never felt so torn in my life." "I know," she said. "So am I. I love you," he said softly. "But I also love where I come from. Earth has my memories, my people, my past." She nodded. "And Valari has my duty, my culture, my people too." They looked at the sky. "We can't live apart," Orlin said. "But if we choose one world over the other, someone will get hurt. Then maybe we need a third choice." She turned to him. "What do you mean?" "Let's create a place for both of us, a new beginning, a home between stars." She blinked. "You mean a space vessel?" "Yes," Liam said. "Not a warship, not a diplomatic ship. Just a home, a place where no one can say we don't belong. We can visit both worlds, share both cultures, teach others that love doesn't care about borders." Her eyes widened. "That's actually beautiful. I've already talked to a few engineers, in the human embassy," Liam added. "They said it's possible. It would take time. But if you speak with your architects, they might help too." She smiled slowly. "A union of both worlds, made real." "It won't be easy," Liam warned. "But maybe that's the point." Orlin looked down at his hand. "You've changed since you arrived." He looked at her. "You changed me." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "We'll build it together," she said, "and we'll show both our worlds what it means to choose each other." 2 days later, both Earth and Valari officials met at the Grand Chamber. It was a tense gathering. Human ambassadors were unsure of Liam's decisions. Valari nobles were still adjusting to the idea of their princess bonding with an outsider. Liam stood with Orlin at the center of the room. They faced both sides. "I have made my decision," Liam said calmly. "And Orlin has made hers." Gasps moved through the crowd when he reached into his jacket and pulled out a data crystal. This crystal contains the first plans for a joint-built ship, not for war, not for politics, for peace, for understanding, for love. Orlin added, "We will live aboard it. We will travel between Earth and Valari, and we will invite others to learn what we are learning, that love does not need to fit inside rules written long ago." A long silence followed. Then slowly one human ambassador stood and clapped, another followed. And then a Valari noble did the same. Soon the room echoed with applause. The king stood slowly, looking directly at his daughter. "If this is your path," he said proudly, "then walk it, and may the stars guide you both." That night, construction began. Human engineers and Valari architects worked side by side. The design was unique, half earth steel, half Valari crystal. It looked like a winged bird with a glowing heart. They called it Unity. Liam and Orlin worked daily with the crew. They chose every piece with care. They didn't want luxury. They wanted something honest, something strong, something both their worlds could be proud of. On the final night before launch, Liam took Orlin back to the same spot where he had first proposed. The same garden, the same flowers, the same soft wind. He knelt again, not to surrender but to honor the journey. "I would choose you 1,000 times, he said. She pulled him up and whispered, "Then I'll laugh 1,000 times more." They kissed under the twin moons, and somewhere behind them, the Unity waited, ready to rise into the stars. The day of the Unity's launch was bright and clear. The massive ship stood tall in the docking bay, shining under Valari Prime's twin suns. Its hull was a mix of Earth's strong metal and Valari's shimmering crystals. It looked like a bird ready to take flight. Crowds gathered to watch from humans and Valari alike. Some were excited, others uncertain, but everyone was curious. At the center of the crowd stood Liam and Orlin, hand in hand. They wore simple robes, symbols of both their worlds combined. Their faces held calm determination. Before the launch, the Valari Queen approached them. She was Orlin's mother, a strong woman with gentle eyes. "You have changed many things," she said softly. "But most of all, you have changed hearts." Orlin smiled. "We did this for love, and for peace." The Queen looked at Liam. "Will you honor her, human, not just as a princess, but as your equal?" Liam bowed respectfully. "I will." The Queen nodded. "Then may the stars protect you both." As the countdown began, Liam turned to Orlin. "Are you ready for this new journey?" She nodded. "With you, always." The engines roared, and the Unity slowly lifted off the ground. The crowd cheered as the ship rose into the sky, breaking through clouds, flying higher than any had before. Inside the ship, the design was unlike any other. There were gardens with glowing plants, rooms that changed colors with moods, and windows that showed the stars like paintings. Liam and Orlin stood in the command room, looking out at the endless universe. "This is our home now," Orlin whispered. Liam smiled. "Our home between worlds." Days turned into weeks as the Unity traveled between Earth and Valari Prime. The journey wasn't easy. There were technical problems, moments of doubt and misunderstandings between the human and Valari crews. But every challenge made them stronger. Orlin learned Earth's languages, music, and stories. Liam learned Valari history, customs, and songs. Together, They taught each other's people to understand and respect their differences. One evening, as stars twinkled outside the ship, Liam asked Orlin a question he had wanted to ask since the beginning. "Why did you giggle when I knelt to propose?" She laughed softly, the same way she had before. "Because," she said, "I didn't expect a human to kneel like that. On Valari, it means surrender, not love. But you didn't surrender to me. You offered your heart, your courage, and your dreams." Liam smiled. "And that made all the difference." Orlin reached out and took his hand. "It still does." The news of their bond and the unity spread across both planets. Some were skeptical at first. Others became inspired. They saw that love could cross stars and species, that two different worlds could find harmony, and that sometimes the greatest change begins with a single act, like a human kneeling with hope and an alien princess laughing with joy. Years later, Liam and Orlin returned to Valari Prime. The palace gardens had grown even more beautiful. The crystal tree stood tall, still holding the charm Liam had made. This time Orlin took Liam's hand and knelt. Not because of tradition, but because she wanted to. "I choose you again," she said with a smile. Liam knelt beside her, laughter in his eyes. "Now we're even," he said. Together they stood, two hearts from different worlds united forever.